Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Top shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the outdoor hospitality industry. From campgrounds and RV parks to glamping, outdoor resorts, adventure travel, and ecotourism. We'll be discussing all things outdoor travel and hospitality, so join us on Good Morning Outdoors every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I feel like I'm becoming a bit of a meteorologist here, living in New York for my first year. This week has been absolutely crazy with the weather. It's like 45, 50 degrees today here in Lake George, upstate New York, but it snowed earlier this week, which I'm somewhat familiar with this living in the Midwest, but Matt, New York is a different breed.
It sure is. I mean, we had like almost blizzard conditions here yesterday in Syracuse.
It's crazy.
But the ground was warm, so you couldn't see, but none of it was sticking to the ground. Here it's as sunny as can be. Beautiful. Got my morning walk in, and I mean, it's cold. It's cold here. It's below freezing, but it's sunny. It's nice, so I'll take it.
Yeah. We're 6 days into spring. Feels like, we've done some park visits here recently preparing for the season. There were some days when you feel like, all right, we could maybe open things back up. It's starting to feel sunny out, nice again. Then it snows like it does this week, and you're reminded why we open beginning of May. So Speaking of some of the park visits, I know, Matt, we've got, some kind of an announcement of sorts. But before we kind of hit that and the progress there, let us know where you're tuning in from. We always love to hear what city you're at, if you're at a campground, or if you've got any campground plans this summer. What area of the country are you looking to travel to? We'd love to learn a little bit more about your plans for this upcoming year. But Matt, I'll let you go ahead with maybe a little bit of news for one of your properties here in the Catskills.
Yeah, so we just it's been in the works for a while, but we just placed an order for 6 glamping tents. These are really cool glamping tents called Jupes. They're different. That's what initially drew me to these tents. They are very low impact, super easy to set up, premium materials, premium quality, really high level of craftsmanship, very design forward. We've also developed a really great relationship with the leadership team over there. So stay tuned. We'll be rolling out a partnership with the Jupe team to, bring all the listeners access to some really great value there that you won't be able to get anywhere else. And we're excited about that. They're super easy to set up. Takes 2 workers a half day to set up a tent. Comes with everything: the bed, the nightstands, charging ports, LED lights. Very simple. It's just a 1-room sleeping tent, no bathroom. We love that simplicity, especially for your very, nature-oriented locations where you don't want all the distractions of overbuilt fancy lodging unit. You want people to be spending time outside, but have a super comfortable, cool place to lay their head at night. So we're excited about that. Stay tuned. If you're in the market for glamping tents or just interesting, unique outdoor lodging options with that cool factor and a premium product, reach out in the meantime. I mean, we'll have a landing page spun up in a few weeks' time, but happy to make a connection in the meantime, tell you all about what we got going on. We're customers and happy customers, and, putting our money where our mouth is with this type of partnership. So yeah, we're excited. Can't wait to get these things rented. We know they'll do very well. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's with the thing that excited me most about the Jupes is the design. It's got kind of that SpaceX, Tesla, design genius in it. Really cool, almost spaceship looking, very modern, but yet could fit in with any property. And I think, for the location in the Catskills being so close to New York City, I think they're going to do incredible. So super excited to see them come up. And we'll certainly have some photos and more stuff to share as they get built, and some content as those go up here within the next couple months.
Absolutely.
And speaking of outdoor lodging, our first project is tied into a little bit of a lodging story here today. Some of you may have caught the news this week about Oculis Lodge. This was a crowdfunding campaign that was launched back in 2022. It raised about $1.2 million by about 1,700 to 1,800 backers. This project originally promised about 35 domes, complete with all the works from, skylights to saunas, fire pits. This was really supposed to be a really cool, unique property. Obviously, the crowdfunding angle of this is what made it so unique. Matt, do you kind of want to give us some more details on what actually happened from 2022 when the owner, Yori, began raising this crowdfund to where we are today, and why the property is actually shutting down and not actually coming to light?
Yeah, a few main takeaways here is real estate development is hard. Very, very risky, especially in locations such as, the Pacific Northwest. Washington State is known to be a tough place to develop. Really great place to have a glamping resort, but difficult. There's always going to be community opposition. That seems to be the main part of the story here. People not wanting to see this project come to fruition in the community for whatever reason. And then crowdfunding is the other piece here, that something we have a little bit of experience with. We've explored it. We've opted not to go that route. It's worked well for some people, and it's led to stories like this for others, where it's a double-edged sword. You're opening up to the general public. There's no accredited investor laws. It's very expensive to get crowdfunding documentation and processes and systems up and running. A lot of lawyers getting paid a lot of money to do that kind of work, and platform fees and everything. But if you make it work, you open,
you've got an
yourself
instant
up to the
customer
general
base.
public.
Yeah,
But
you've got an instant customer base of demand, theoretically.
Right. The flip side of that is what we're seeing reported with this story is that it's not a sophisticated investor on average that's investing in these types of projects. It's people become interested in the brand and the story and the person behind it, and they're making a bet, essentially, especially with real estate development. It's a multi-year process, tons of risk involved. People don't generally understand that. I think the math comes out to like a $1,700 average investment for the number of investors and the total money raised. People are putting that on their credit card. It's not a sophisticated investor that, you're putting the documentation out there that explains the risks. Most people aren't reading it. You see people clamoring for refunds, which I think just displays that there's a lack of understanding as to what it entails, because you're putting your money at risk for a real estate development project. There's no refunds. It's not, you're not buying a trinket or a widget at the store. You're putting your money at risk. So it's a shame. We don't like to see these kinds of stories. Hopefully there's a future for this property. It is for sale now for less than what was invested, but I'd like to see something cool happen with it. I don't know. What about you, Alex?
I think one of my takeaways to your point, Matt, about sophisticated investors is really, the timing of this campaign and where it was raised. So the crowdfunding started in 2022. for most of us who, remember, that's not too shortly after the COVID pandemic, and where we saw a huge spike in demand in outdoor hospitality. And I think there is a very real case that a lot of those investors who participated in this campaign saw that boom and that buzz and said, I've got an extra $1,000. I've got $500 here and there, or $5,000 or $10,000 to deploy into this, and say, I'm going to take a shot on something that could become a really great property in a really cool location. And I think that uneducated nature, combined with the timing and the demand that was present at that time, led to this situation today. There were numerous delays through this process, which anybody who's developed real estate knows well and often pops up. They only really ever built one dome, the one that was seen on the cover today for the story. 35 were promised. There was, as people started, I think, becoming frustrated and upset with the progress, they began taking a lot of these personal attacks at the founders, and, as you said, just kind of clamoring for refunds, and just, I think, not understanding how crowdfunding real estate worked. So I think unfortunate, probably looking back at the time that the crowdfunding actually came to life. If Yori could probably go back in time, he might have wished to done it differently when demand was calmer. In some ways, I think that can actually help a project to get more level-headed folks who actually have, additional money and funds at stake to come into a project like this and support it and understand the goals and understand the timeline and the risk that's involved, rather than just sort of seeing really good demand, finding a way to capitalize it with unsophisticated investors, and then finding yourself in this situation where the project stalls out and you've got a lot of people unhappy. So yeah, really interesting to see how this will develop, if the property will sell. As you mentioned, Matt, it's listed for about $725,000 on Redfin today. So, call it, a little bit over half of the total amount that was raised, to, I would assume, try and get some money back to make some investors whole and just kind of wrap up the project. But really interesting to see if any lodging concept, even apart from outdoor hospitality, will develop on this property. So super interesting. Always a bummer to lead with some bad news, so to speak, but I think a really interesting story about crowdfunding and how crowdfunding in outdoor hospitality really works.
Well said.
So yeah, our next story here that we'll talk about is a little bit on the brighter note, in the sense of we're going from an investment that failed a little bit here to one that was made over this past week with a major player in the space. And of course, I'm talking about Under Canvas announcing a record investment for them of $50 million to really further grow their brand. They're going to be getting into 2 new locations, both out west, one in California and one in the Pacific Northwest. And then they're also kind of going back to basics a little bit here, focusing on additional lodging for the units. They're looking at kids' tents. Of course, they're famous and known for their really cool bell tent canvases. They're really shoring up new locations, lodging, and Matt, this is really capital intensive.
Sure is. Yeah. I mean, great story. Under Canvas, really considered to be the pioneers of American glamping in the early 2010s. I think started to catch steam well before a lot of the other players in the space made their names. So focused on national park adjacent properties, irreplaceable locations, beautiful scenery. I think they're up to 15 locations in the works now. So my takeaway from this is kind of similar along to the last stories. This is a very capital intensive business. It was reported that the business was sold for $100 million to private equity. Now another $50 million investment. It's probably not the only investment that's happened over the years. So we're talking about $150+ million for 15 locations, $10 million per location. It's a chunk of change. It really is. And I've had the privilege of staying at Under Canvas. Really cool concept, food and beverage on site. Food was good. They are canvas tents. Word on the street has been that they are looking at new solutions for tents. I was in the Smoky Mountains location, which is a very moist environment. So I know they had some challenges contending with that moisture in canvas tents, which you want to stay away from cotton based canvas. At least that's not treated, because mold can very quickly become a problem. So yeah, that's my takeaway is takes a lot of money, takes deep backing and commitment to this space to grow a business like that. And it's good to see, private equity gets a bad rap for coming in, investing initially, and then optimizing and cutting costs and prioritizing profit. So this is reassuring to see that they understand what it takes. They're reinvesting in their locations, and I'm excited. I want to go see additional locations out west, particularly. Some of the views and settings are just breathtaking.
Yeah, and we look at these two new locations, both of them also being out west. I think it's interesting. Obviously, we know that there are there's a lot more supply out there already, and likewise a lot more demand out west than here in the Northeast where we are. I think it makes a lot of sense for them and their thesis, being close to national parks and really spectacular properties. Obviously, there's some spectacular pieces of property out west that really are kind of core to the thesis that Under Canvas has for the type of locations they developed. What I also like to see beyond just the two additional location purchases was that look, they were coming into existing locations and adding lodging and focusing on operations. As an ops guy, that makes me happy to see. And I think the piece of this where they're adding kids tents was kind of interesting to me, in the sense of, I think it tells us a little bit about who their demographic is and kind of what they see for a future of targeting, right? If you bring in a family for that and adding in that other sort of lodging piece and lodging component, I think it gives us an indication as to what they're seeing, where the buying power actually is living right now. And based on the locations that they're adding them to, I think they're being strategic about how they're rolling that out. And hopefully they'll continue to be innovative with those solutions to make the stay feel super customized and unique. As you said, Matt, you can go with as a couple or with friends or various different kind of reasons you'd want to go visit an Under Canvas location. I think pulling the family in is a really smart move for them and helps diversify. Obviously, we know those folks are have some additional income to spare as far as what they're using for travel and the type of budget that families have when they go on that type of trip. So I think it's a way for them to really sort of bolster the other things that they have beyond just the accommodations, is recognizing that if we can get the families in, there are numerous opportunities to continue to sell and make that customer more than just the lodging stay itself. So I thought that was sort of an interesting note. I'm kind of reading through the lines there, looking at some of the lodging additions they have, but I think it's an interesting way to look at how they see their customer base and what they're prioritizing on the lodging base moving forward as well. So congratulations to Under Canvas, everybody involved there. Really excited to see the locations continue to develop. We'll certainly keep an eye on the lodging and how this investment turns out. But these are two spectacular locations out west. Super excited to see them develop and come to fruition. Matt, anything else to add on Under Canvas here?
No, excited to stay tuned.
Absolutely. On the campground side, we have got a cool story from some folks that we've actually had a chance to connect with recently here in a more personalized way. We're talking about Modern America Campgrounds released a story in Woodall's Campground magazine this week, talking about the rewards program. And I think this is a really unique tie-in to, if you listen to any of the other segments earlier in the last couple of weeks on GMH, we've had some great conversations around loyalty versus discount programs. And I think this is a really kind of important case study to look at on the camping side, because not too many players have a loyalty or discount program. Of course, you can attribute this to, our industry being so fragmented. Most folks who own parks don't have the level of locations and growth that Modern America has experienced over the last couple of years. And it's been really interesting to watch as they've gone from no parks to 31 locations, how they've rolled out what they call their Freedom Points program, which again is their rewards model. Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about, what Modern America has been able to do with this and the success they've had?
Yeah, I've been fascinated with Modern America Campgrounds for a couple of years now. They came onto the scene, I think, almost 3 years ago now, and just started buying campgrounds at an incredible clip. And that's being my background in commercial real estate, finance, and investments. That's what piqued my interest. They're up to 31 campgrounds in less than 3 years. I've been part of 3 campground acquisitions in 4 years, and my head is spinning. It's a testament to the team they've built, the operation they've built. It's incredible. Kudos to them. They are, they built this really incredible brand, and as someone who cold calls these types of people and tries to get in touch with them, not easy to get in touch with. So lots of trying to pierce the veil of that brand and get in touch with leadership over there to no success there until I got an email out of the blue. Leadership over there, I think, caught wind of our newsletter and reached out. So I had a nice, fun conversation. We'll keep the details confidential because that was a conversation that was off the record. But what we can say is that they've seen tremendous results from this. It's driving revenue. I think it is a really interesting way to creatively drive revenue beyond renting dirt for money. I think a lot of people come in from real estate, from mobile home parks, from apartments, and they look at campgrounds like, I'm going to rent dirt for money because that's the most efficient way to make revenue and to drive revenue. And that's true to some degree. It requires the least brain damage, that's for sure. This kind of model demands creativity. It demands marketing and making sure you're making a good offer to your customers, and they've done that. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, really, from what the results that they've shared with us. It's incredible. It moves the needle in a big way, and we see something sort of similar with Equity Lifestyle Properties. They've shifted their business over the years towards it's not linearly, parallel, but it's a membership program. It's detaching the revenue, the camping revenue, from the site itself, which I think is very powerful. It's hard to do. It's not easy. It takes commitment and belief and really smart approach, which Modern America has done. So kudos to them. I'm a big fan. I'm excited to follow along and see where this goes, because I think it'll make a lot of waves in the industry and maybe inspire some people to follow suit.
And so another piece of context here on Modern America, they've been really strategic. We say 31 locations, but these are all based in the same geographic region. They've really focused on the Northeast, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont. It's a very Northeast dominant heavy portfolio that they've started really strategically rolling out those locations. So when you look at a program like this that is really geared towards it's a tiered rewards program where you spend more money and you hit certain hurdles, you can climb the ladder in terms of rewards. I think it's somewhere between 12 to 15% off back in rewards based on the certain spending tiers that you hit at any of their locations. Why I think that's so smart is that folks can move around very easily to see a lot of these properties within a short amount of time. It makes you really feel like you want to go on this adventure. And if if you've done that trip that's out west in the RV and now you're ready to come back and make your way from New York all the way up to Maine or vice versa, anything here happening in the Northeast, you can really park hop and stay at all of the Modern America parks and explore the Northeast. And it's, I think, a really smart way for them to not only get great customer data on who's hopping and choosing locations at along the way, what's resonating, what's not, where are customers gravitating to as far as location goes. But I think it also allows that branding to really become stronger to where, look, the enticement here is the discount and the reward. Modern America, although it does have a powerful brand, it is still very much a young brand. And I think the approach of having a pretty decent discount, I mean, 12 to 15% is not, that's not nothing. That's a good incentive for a traveler to make that jump and say, all right, we've found the park chain that has all of the locations. These are all really nice locations too. They recently purchased property here in Lake George that I know well. That's a couple minutes from me. That's a spectacular location. They're really great locations in the Northeast too, and I think that helps on the loyalty front. So this is very much a discount program. It's helping them build that loyalty and make that brand stronger over time. But it's very much not we're going to collect points and redeem them for free nights. It's starting at $0 to $500 spent with Modern America. You start at the bottom rung of the rewards program at 12%. You do one. If you're a part of their Freedom Points program, you could spend up to $500 and still get that 12% off. So I love that approach from a marketing perspective too, that the floor becomes so low that you get a lot of people wanting to come try this out and say, all right, that's enough incentive that, people being as price conscious as they are, make the decision to choose Modern America because of the discount program that's in place. So I think the rollout has been really smart. There was even quoted in the article that by the end of March, they expect to have 2,000 signups and nearly $500,000 in reservations made through the loyalty program. So as you said, Matt, significantly moves the needle, even with 31 locations, to add an extra $500,000 to the bottom line that's not connected to any, campsite revenue like that is frankly phenomenal. And kudos to them for the rollout here. Super smart. As you mentioned, besides some of the major players, I know Jellystone's got a great loyalty program. ELS has one, but I can't name too many more beyond that who have had a really successful rollout. Obviously, KOA has theirs. Yep. It's big players. So for them to come in with, 31 and have the success that they've had so far is phenomenal and really interesting to see as they continue to roll this out.
Yeah, to me, it signals their commitment and buy-in to the space. The leadership there comes from a commercial real estate background and ventured into this outdoor hospitality space. I'm sure they've learned a tremendous amount. And to me, it's a signal that they are all in, they're committed. They want to maximize this brand and all those locations. They are putting the customer first, which is a big thing. I mean, a lot of people that jump in from hospitality, and that's kind of second nature if you're in the hospitality business and you're bought in. But I think there's a disconnect there in our outdoor hospitality space because we see
that's not always the case on the real estate side.
We see so many people just coming in and looking at it like a landlord, and that those types of people aren't going to want to do this type of exercise. They'll see risk in it. They'll see that it's brain damage, that, all that. So I love it. I love it to see it. It's buy-in, and, it's tremendous to get that customer loyalty.
Right.
By building a portfolio like that, that's a tremendous way to unlock value, is to inspire your customers to patronize multiple locations. So love it.
Right. And
all around, it's great.
One last note on this story. I think, them being smart to roll out the brand almost from the beginning. I'm, not quite sure if the first couple of locations really had the focus behind the Modern America brand, but really smart that they fairly early on decided we're going to brand this portfolio and grow a brand around a collection of campgrounds. We do see real estate folks, and not to say this is wrong or bad. There's a lot of oftentimes local brand cachet or loyalty with individual parks that were known by a certain trade name for a number of years. But for them to come in and sort of recapture and rebrand the portfolio around Modern America, I mean, even the name is patriotic. It's cool. It feels like something that, anybody can be a part of. They were just really smart with that. And I think from the branding and the loyalty side, it's paid off. Customers want cool experiences, and they want to be able to travel and hop around areas of the country. What I'm going to be interested in seeing is just how they continue to expand beyond what they've begun to carve out in the Northeast, and if they're really aiming to make this a national takeover at some point and go nationwide. So they've got such a strong presence here in the Northeast near us, Matt, but excited to continue to watch them grow, and congrats to everybody at Modern America for the success and launch of this thing. Been incredible to see the success so far and how it will continue to grow over the many more locations I expect they'll add over the next couple of years. And then finally, to wrap up the news stories for today, we've got some encouraging news on the RV side of the business. The RV shipment report from RVIA recently got released. Big jump of about 6% up in February. And for those of you watching on video, we've got a table on the screen going through some 2024 and 2025 numbers. You can see this is a direct comparison from January of 24 and then same thing, February of 24 to the 2025 numbers. Good jumps so far in both of those months, with travel trailers leading the way. Motorhomes, Matt, surprisingly, is really the thing that's pulled this data down. I would say that the jump would be even higher, and we might be talking about a record-breaking type of February, or kind of. I think the discussion would be different if motorhomes hadn't pulled this category down about 20% year over year from February of 2024 to 2025, but still really strong, up 6%. Good sign for February as we head into the year. What did you think of the data, and what does this tell you?
Good question. There's been so much narrative in the industry about transient demand for campsites being down. So this obviously, and this is wholesale shipments. So
correct. Yeah, this is retail registrations. Yeah,
correct. So this more reflects dealer sentiment and kind of how the dealers are predicting
exactly,
the rest of the year to go. So it's encouraging. It's normalized a little bit. There's a big delta in January. Not that 6% isn't a big delta from, year over year, February to February. It's encouraging. You and I both have some experience in traveling in a motorhome. To me, this makes a lot of sense because I think millennials and Gen Z, and even probably Gen X, they value exploration. So you rent a campsite.
That's your base camp. That's your right. Landing spot
exactly.
For whatever place you're going to go visit.
And I'm not I'd say I'm still a novice RVer. Most of my experience RVing is a seasonal site where the RV stays for multiple years. You don't worry about moving it. Becomes your stationary second home, kind of
home for the summer. Yeah.
So when you have a motorhome, if you do value the ability to travel around, that means you got to take a tow vehicle with you. That adds time and frustration and logistics to the whole traveling experience, which can be frustrating. We see kind of a rise of camper vans, the van life, Class B RVs, which typically you're not going to have a tow vehicle with that for the most part. But yeah, travel trailers, I think there's just a convenience. in my experience, it's easier to drop a travel trailer than it is to disconnect a tow vehicle. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm still cautiously optimistic with what it's telling us. I still think if you've got a good location and a good operation, it's a great business to be in, camping and RVing. I always question kind of the anecdotal horror stories out there about revenue being way down. I always first kind of go to the assumption that something's probably not right with the operation, the marketing, the service, the guest experience. So time will tell. I mean, I'm encouraged. It makes sense to me if I think about myself as a traveler and a customer.
Yeah, I think
could be the death of the motorhome that we're looking at. I don't think that's true, but
right. I would say to that point, you know, the way people buy and use motorhomes has shifted. You know, when we think about such a large type of bus or a monster of a unit that's going around, you know, that still has its place, but the way people are buying those have dramatically shifted. You know, smaller Class B and Class C type of motorhomes, those are still popular in certain cases. You know, if you've seen the Mercedes Sprinter vans that a lot of people are probably accustomed to seeing, you know, those still have its place. Expensive,
sure.
Really cool. You can, you know, pack all your stuff and travel around and go place to place. But it's carved out its own segment, and there's new marketing and new approaches to reactivate and reach out to those customers. But with this story, I'll leave it with this note. And I think this is summed up well from Craig Kirby, who's the president over at the RV Industry Association. He summed up this data from the February report by saying, the market is showing good signs of recovery, but we must stay mindful of potential economic headwinds and the need for sustained consumer confidence. And I think really all of that is true. RVIA is encouraged by the signs they're seeing so far. Dealers seem to be encouraged by the signs. We see good demand coming with RV reservations. Obviously, that booking window has shortened like it has for a number of folks across the country, but demand is still there. If the economy remains well, if folks continue to buy as they typically do leading up to the start of the traditional camping season with Memorial Day kind of being the kickoff, then we should be in for a really solid year. We're not getting back to COVID levels. This, you know, it's not, I don't think anybody's predicting that, but we could still have a very strong year for RV sales, retail registrations, and ultimately consumer reservations. So with that, Matt, I think we'll leave it on an encouraging note with reservations coming for this next year. I think, you know, we're at a good spot. Obviously, we're kind of 35-ish days here from opening day. I know a lot of our other campground folks are kind of gearing up towards opening, or April 1st for a lot of folks is opening day. So if you're somebody listening and watching out there who's getting ready to open, we wish you guys a fantastic, great season. I know some folks are getting ready to gather out west at the Campground Solutions Summit West here coming up on April 1st. So for our folks out west, hope you have a great show and a really great start to the camping season. Hope everybody had a fantastic episode, and we will see you back here next Thursday for more. Thanks, guys.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.